Daniel walked carefully through the alien forest. His boots sank softly into the mossy ground, and the air smelled like metal and wet leaves. He was alone, far from his team's landing camp, scanning the area with his tracker, the planet called Vira 9 was mostly unexplored, filled with strange plants and odd animal noises. He had come to study, map, and report not to get involved in anything dangerous. But something strange pulled him forward, deeper into the trees. He couldn't explain it, but he felt watched. Then, suddenly, he heard it. A scream, high and sharp, filled with fear. It echoed between the trees like a blade slicing through silence. Daniel froze. Was it an animal? A trap? Or something else? He moved quickly, his heart pounding as he pushed through the thick bushes. He saw her. A small alien child, no taller than his waist, stood crying beside a tree. Her skin was pale like soft pearl, glowing faintly. Under the canopy, she had silver eyes, wet with tears, and her white hair clung to her face. Her clothes were torn, and one of her feet was bleeding. The moment she saw him, she cried louder, pointing behind her. "Please, human, help my mom." She screamed. "She's caught in a trap. She's dying." Daniel blinked, confused. He stepped closer slowly, keeping his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "What trap? Where is she?" he asked gently. The child turned and ran into the forest without answering. For a second, Daniel hesitated. This could be a trick. He could walk into something dangerous or worse, never return, but the child's voice echoed. Again through the trees, "Please." His training said to stay safe, report to base, and wait for backup. But something in him wouldn't allow that. He took a deep breath and ran after her. The trees grew thicker, and strange blue vines hung. From above, like glowing snakes, his scanner beeped wildly. This part of the forest wasn't in the maps. The child's small figure darted through the trees ahead of him, stopping now and then to make sure he was following. Finally, they reached a clearing with rocks and sharp branches scattered everywhere. In the center of the clearing, there was a deep hole in the ground like a natural pit, and inside it, he saw her. An alien woman lay at the bottom of the trap. She had the same pale skin as the child, but she was tall, elegant, and badly injured. Her leg was twisted, and strange wires wrapped around her arms. Daniel realized it wasn't a natural pit. This was a hunting snare, artificial and cruel. Spikes lined the bottom, just inches away from her body. Thin cables drained glowing blue energy from her skin into a small power core at the side of the trap. It was killing her slowly, painfully. Like she was being harvested, Daniel's blood turned cold. This wasn't some animal trap. This was made to capture intelligent life, to torture and steal something valuable. He looked at the child, who was kneeling beside the hole, whispering softly to her mother. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and her small hands tried to reach the woman below. Without wasting another second, Daniel jumped down into the trap. The alien mother opened her eyes weakly and stared at him. She didn't speak, but her eyes held both fear and hope. He pulled a small plasma cutter from his belt and began slicing. The energy wires, each wire sparked and hissed, but he didn't stop suddenly. A loud beep echoed from the trap's edge. A red light began flashing on the device. An alert signal. Someone's coming. Daniel said to himself. The child gasped and pointed at the sky. Dark shapes flew above the tree's metallic drones, scanning the area. Whoever made the trap knew it had been opened. The hunters were coming. Daniel threw the broken energy core aside and lifted the alien mother into his arms. She was weak and light, her body shaking from pain. "Hold on," he whispered. He reached up with one hand, and the child grabbed it. With a strong pull, he climbed out of the pit, carrying the mother and guiding the child beside him. The forest around them began to glow. Motion sensors were activating. Daniel didn't wait. He turned and ran. Deeper into the forest behind him, the child followed closely, and the woman rested quietly in his arms. The trees shook as machines stirred in the distance. The hunt had started, but this time, the human wasn't running away. He was running to save. Daniel ran fast through the glowing forest. The child's small feet slapped the ground behind him. In his arms, the alien mother groaned softly, her body limp and cold. Drones flew overhead, scanning the trees with red lights. Daniel weaved through thick roots and strange plants, trying not to trip. The forest was alive, but not in a friendly way. Everything felt like it was watching him, waiting for him to fail. He spotted a rocky cliff ahead and ducked behind it. The child followed, hiding in the shadows beside him. He set the mother down gently against the rocks and knelt to check her wounds. Pale to palened, the glowing lines along her arms had dimmed. She was losing energy, not blood. She opened her eyes for a second and whispered something. In her own language, the child translated quickly, her voice trembling. She says the trap was draining her soul light. It's what gives her life. Daniel had seen many alien creatures, but nothing like this. He checked his emergency kit, looking for anything that could help. No medicine would fix this, only time and safety. But both were running out. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the trees. A silver spear slammed into the ground just inches from Daniel's feet. He looked up and saw them. 3 tall figures stood at the edge of the trees. They wore dark armor made of bone and metal, their faces hidden behind black masks. Each held a glowing weapon, and one of them spoke in a deep, hollow voice. "Return the female. Human, she is property." Daniel stood slowly, placing himself between them and the mother. "She's not your property. She's a living being," he said, calmly. The lead hunter stepped forward. "You have no idea what she is, what her kind holds. The energy inside her can power ships for years." The child whimpered and clutched Daniel's arm. One of the hunters raised his spear. Daniel pulled out his flare gun and fired it straight into the sky. A bright red light exploded above the trees. It was a distress signal to his camp. But help was far away, and the hunters didn't seem afraid. The first hunter charged, spear ready. Daniel rolled to the side and grabbed a branch, swinging it hard. It broke on the hunter's armor, barely slowing him down. The child screamed as the second hunter aimed a shock dart. Daniel grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into the hunter's face. It bought him just enough time to dive for his tool pack. He pulled out a compact sonic blaster and fired, a high-pitched pulse knocked one hunter to the ground, but the other 2 kept coming. The mother tried to move, her fingers glowing faintly as she whispered an old word. Suddenly, vines from the forest floor snapped to life and grabbed one of the hunters by the legs. He roared in anger as the plants held him down. Daniel looked at the alien woman in shock. Even half dead, she was calling the forest to protect her. He turned and fired another sonic pulse, hitting the final hunter in the chest. The armor cracked, and the figure stumbled. Daniel rushed forward, grabbed the spear, and slammed it into the ground, breaking it in 2. The fight was messy, desperate, and wild. But somehow, Daniel kept them safe. The hunters were down, but not for long. He knew more would come, drawn by the signal from the trap. He knelt beside the mother again. Her breathing was weak, but her eyes locked with his. "You saved her." The child whispered, "No one ever helps us, only you." Daniel nodded, sweat pouring from his face. "We're not done yet. We need shelter." He picked the mother up once more, her body lighter than before. The child led the way, pointing to a narrow cave hidden behind the rocks. Daniel followed her into the darkness, hoping it would hide them for now. Inside the cave, the walls glowed with soft green light. Strange symbols pulsed along the stone-like veins. The mother's eyes widened slightly. She recognized this place. She whispered, "Sanctuary." Before falling unconscious again, Daniel set her down gently on the stone floor and looked around. It felt warm inside, almost alive. The child sat close to her mother, holding her hand. Daniel stood guard at the entrance, listening to the forest. The wind carried strange whispers, drones, machines, more hunters. But inside the cave, something ancient had awakened, and Daniel could feel it too. He wasn't just helping strangers anymore. He was standing between good and evil, life and death. And something told him this was only the beginning. Inside the glowing cave, the air was quiet. Daniel sat at the entrance, holding a small stun blaster in his lap. His eyes stayed locked on the forest outside, watching for movement. The alien child curled beside her mother, both resting on the smooth cave floor. The glowing patterns on the walls shifted gently. Like they were alive, the strange green light warmed Daniel's skin, giving him a feeling of calm. He didn't trust it. He knew the silence would not last long. A low hum began to grow in the distance. It wasn't wind, it wasn't birds. It was machines flying, searching, scanning. The hunters were back. And they were not alone this time. Daniel checked his communicator. No signal, no backup, not even static. The hunters were jamming transmissions, trapping him deep in alien territory. He turned back and saw the child watching him, her eyes wide. They're coming again, aren't they? She asked softly. He nodded slowly. Yes, and we need to be ready. The alien mother stirred, her eyes half open. She whispered in a shaky voice, "This cave, it protects. But only if we call it." Daniel didn't understand, but the child did. She placed her hand on one of the glowing walls and began to hum a soft tune. The walls shimmered and pulsed brighter, the symbols reacting to her voice. Suddenly, the entrance of the cave lit up. A field of green light appeared like a shield across the mouth of the cave, just in time. 3 large hunters stepped out from the trees, their armor now glowing red instead of black. One of them held a long rod that crackled with electric energy. Another pointed a scanning device toward the cave. "She's inside," the lead hunter growled. "And she's waking up." They approached the shield, and one raised his weapon to strike. The moment it touched the green barrier, a loud pulse rang out. The hunter flew backward, slamming into a tree. The other 2 stepped back. Surprised, the lead hunter grunted. The old magic. This is ancient tech. Living tech? He activated a round drone that flew high into the sky and hovered. It sent out pulses of red light in all directions, searching, mapping, counting heartbeats. "They're not alone," the drone beeped. "There is a human, and his heart is strong, inside the cave." Daniel tightened his grip on the blaster. He whispered to the child, "If they break through, take your mom and run. Don't look back." The child shook her head hard. "No. We stay together. You're the only reason she's alive." Suddenly, the drone outside began to crackle. A beam of light shot down from it and started melting the barrier slowly. The cave's light flickered. Old systems, waking from long sleep, couldn't hold forever. Daniel stood and faced the entrance. He aimed his blaster and waited. The hum grew louder. The shield started breaking apart, piece by piece, then crash. The first hunter broke through and charged. Daniel fired 2 quick shots, one missed. The other hit the hunter's shoulder. It slowed him down, but not enough. The second hunter followed, swinging his weapon wildly. Daniel dodged and ducked. Feeling the heat from the energy rod pass by his head, the child screamed. But the mother rose slightly and spoke a single word. The cave roared in response. From the walls, long vines of glowing green energy shot out. They wrapped around the second hunter, lifting him into the air. The third one leaped forward, but Daniel was ready. He kicked him backward and slammed his fist into the control panel on the cave wall. The panel sparked, and a pulse of light filled the cave. The 2 hunters inside were thrown out violently. The third tried to escape but got caught in a trap of roots and stone. The green shield reformed instantly, stronger than before, outside. The hunters growled and shouted, but they could not enter again, not without serious force. Daniel fell to his knees, breathing hard. His shirt was torn, and his hands were bruised. The child ran to him, wrapping her arms around him tightly. "You're hurt," she cried. He shook his head slowly. "I'm alive. That's enough." The alien mother looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly again. She spoke, voice weak, but steady, human. "You did not run. You did not trade my life for yours. You stayed." Daniel gave a tired smile. "I've seen enough cruelty in this galaxy. It's time someone fought back." The cave pulsed again, brighter than before. It was bonding with them, recognizing them as protectors, not intruders, and somewhere deeper inside. Something ancient stirred, a secret hidden for generations. Waiting for someone brave enough to awaken it, the hunters outside retreated for now, but they would return, and next time, they'd come with more, inside. Daniel sat down beside the mother and child. He knew this wasn't over. This was warranted. He had just become a part of it. The cave had grown quiet again, but it was not empty. The glowing patterns on the walls now moved like slow waves, pulsing with life. Daniel sat with his back against the wall, eyes half closed, watching the child sleep beside her mother. Both were finally resting, safe for the moment, but the strange hum in the cave never stopped. It was soft and low, like a heartbeat deep, ancient and steady. He stood up and walked deeper into the cave. The light followed him, lighting his path as he moved. He didn't know what he was searching for, but something inside him whispered, "Keep going." The walls narrowed, and the floor turned smooth beneath his boots. Symbols lined the sides more complex than before. Some looked like stars, others like strange creatures with wings and long tails. Then, suddenly, the tunnel opened into a round chamber. At the center was a tall pillar of crystal, glowing blue and green. Daniel stepped closer and reached out. As soon as his fingers touched the surface, the crystal lit up. A rush of images filled his mind, memories that were not his own. He saw tall alien figures standing beneath stars, speaking words of peace and protection. He saw battles long ago, hunters with weapons chasing mothers and children. He saw this very cave filled with lights, songs, and guardians. And then he saw her, the alien mother, young and strong, standing with others like her. She was a guardian of her kind, one of the last to carry the soul light. Her people had hidden from the galaxy for centuries, because the soul light inside them could be stolen and used to power machines. Hunters came from across the stars to trap them. Daniel saw her caught in a battle, wounded, and then hiding in the forest to protect her child. The vision faded, and Daniel gasped, falling to his knees. His hands shook, his heart pounded. He wasn't just helping strangers anymore. He had stepped into something far older. The crystal pulsed again, and a soft voice spoke in his mind. "You are chosen, not by blood, but by action. Protector of the weak, breaker of chains." Back at the cave entrance, the mother opened her eyes slowly. She turned to the side and saw Daniel returning, a strange light in his eyes. The child ran to him, smiling with relief. "You're back? We thought you got lost." Daniel knelt beside them and took the mother's hand. "I saw what they did to your people," he said. "I saw who you really are." The mother nodded slowly. "Our kind was once strong. We kept peace on many worlds. But then, hunters came." She pointed at the wall near them. A new symbol had appeared, 3 stars and a human figure standing between them. Daniel stared, confused. "What does that mean?" he asked. The child answered softly. "It means a new protector has been chosen." By the legacy of the cave, Daniel sat back, feeling the weight of those words. He had come here for exploration, not prophecy. But now the cave recognized him. The mother placed a hand on his shoulder. There is power in this place, but only the worthy can touch it. She said, "You are not of our blood, but you carry something greater choice." He looked down at his hands, still shaking from the visions. "Then I choose to help," he whispered. "I won't let them take you or anyone else like you." The cave responded, its walls glowing brighter, the air warmed, and a breeze moved through the chamber as if the cave breathed with them. Suddenly, a panel opened behind the wall, revealing a set of old tools-armored gloves, a translator crystal, and a small energy blade. Daniel stepped forward and took the gloves, sliding them on. They fit perfectly, and the energy inside them pulsed with his heartbeat. "These were made for the defenders," the mother said. "You are one of them now." The child smiled and hugged Daniel tightly. "You're part of our family," she whispered. He hugged her back, feeling something real, something strong for the first time in years. He felt like he belonged. Outside, the hunters regrouped. They had seen the flare, tracked the heat signature, and now they waited with more drones. But something had changed. The cave had not just protected the mother and child, had awakened a guardian. And this time, when they came, they would face more than just a human. Daniel stood at the entrance of the cave once again, the gloves glowing faintly. He looked out into the forest, knowing what was coming. This was no longer about one mother or one child. This was about stopping a war before it spread again. And this time, the galaxy would hear the cry not just of a child, but of a human who answered it. The sun rose slowly over the alien forest, casting long shadows through the trees. But the morning did not bring peace. It brought fire. Daniel stood at the edge of the cave, watching smoke rise in the distance. The hunters had returned this time with machines. Flames spread through the forest. Burning trees and glowing plants, drones hovered above, scanning for life, marking targets. The child stood beside Daniel, holding his hand tightly. "They're burning everything," she whispered. "They want to flush us out." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "They're not hunting now," he said. "They're cleaning up, removing witnesses, ending bloodlines behind them." The alien mother rested inside the cave, her strength returning slowly. The symbols on the wall pulsed gently with her heartbeat. But time was running out. They could not hide forever. They had to fight. Daniel walked back into the cave and opened the ancient weapon rack. He pulled out the energy gloves and slipped them on. They responded to his touch, buzzing softly with life. Next, he took the small energy blade, light as a feather, but sharp enough to cut steel. The child watched as Daniel packed survival gear and tools. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm going out," he said, "but it's not safe." She cried. Daniel looked at her and smiled. "Exactly." He knelt beside her and placed a small tracker into her hand. "If anything happens to me, use this to find the others." He said, "What others?" Daniel's voice dropped low. "There are more survivors like you, hiding, scared, waiting for someone to fight back." With that, he turned and left the cave. The trees groaned as fire ate their roots. Daniel moved fast, jumping over fallen logs and ducking under vines. He knew this forest now had become a battlefield. He reached the edge of a burning clearing and saw them. 3 large hunter transport pods had landed. Dozens of hunters marched through the trees, setting traps and calling in their drones. But Daniel wasn't alone. He knelt and opened a pouch from his side, pulling out pieces of alien tech mixed with human tools. Using wires, crystals, and scraps, he began to build traps of his own. He set up motion-triggered sonic mines along narrow paths. He tied energy netting between trees, blending it with forest vines. He even programmed a decoy emitter to sound like the alien mother's life signal it would lure the hunters into. A false location. When he was done, He climbed into the trees and waited. The hunters moved like shadows below him, scanning, listening. One stepped into a trap. The ground exploded with blue light, knocking him backward. Another was caught in the energy net, screaming as he struggled to escape. Panic spread through the group. "They're here." One shouted. "Where?" "Everywhere." Daniel struck from above, dropping onto one of the hunters with a flash of his blade. He vanished before the others could react. Using smoke from his canister to hide, the hunters fought back, but they couldn't see their enemy. Daniel had become part of the forest, silent, fast, and deadly. The lead hunter growled and activated a scanner. But the signals were scrambled. His drone's feed filled with static. "He's using the old tech, cave-born magic," the hunter spat. "He's learned from them." More traps exploded across the area. Trees falling, drones crashing. Daniel moved through the chaos like a ghost, striking, vanishing, striking again. He wasn't just surviving, he was winning, but even he was not unstoppable. A hidden hunter saw him climb a tree and fired a shock dart. It hit Daniel in the side, and he fell hard to the ground. His vision blurred, and his legs shook. 3. Hunters closed in around him, weapons raised. Just when one of them reached for him, the forest answered. A roar echoed through the trees as thick vines shot out from the ground. They wrapped around the hunters, pulling them away. Daniel looked up weakly and saw Hertha, alien mother, stood at the edge of the trees, her arms raised, the caves. Power had followed her. Beside her, the child held her hand, face full of courage. "You said we'd stay together," she called out. "So we came." The mother raised her hands. And the forest came alive. Branches moved, roots cracked open the ground. The hunters screamed as the forest swallowed them one by one. It was no longer a battle, it was a message. The mother knelt beside Daniel, her touch calming his shaking. "You gave us your strength," she said. "Now we give you ours." Daniel stood slowly. Leaning on her shoulder, the hunters had fled or fallen. But this was only one wave. More would come, stronger and smarter. He looked around at the broken machines and burning trees. This planet had been quiet for too long, and now it was waking up. Daniel turned to the mother and child. "It's time to send a message," he said. "A message the whole galaxy can hear." Asterisk smoke still rose from the forest as Daniel limped. Back to the cave, the alien mother and child helped him walk, their hands steady and warm. The battle had been once, but not the war. Daniel knew the hunters would return. With more firepower, more ships, more death. He sat down inside the glowing cave, his body aching. The ancient walls pulsed around him, slowly healing his wounds. With soft green light, but his mind was racing, if he didn't speak out now. More innocent lives would be taken on this planet and others. He had to tell the galaxy. He had to show them what the hunters were doing. Daniel looked at the child and held out the tracker he gave her earlier. "It's time," he said. "Time for what?" She asked softly, "To send a message they can't ignore." He took apart the tracker and connected it to a small drone from one of the defeated hunters. With careful hands, he rewired the communication circuits and activated the broadcast. Channel. The drone buzzed to life, its red eye blinking. Daniel tied a glowing crystal to its center and aimed its antenna toward the sky. He turned to the mother. "I need you to speak," he said. "Your voice carries history, truth no one has heard." She looked unsure at first, but the child squeezed her hand and nodded. "You are their voice now, Mama." The mother stepped forward, placing her hand on the crystal. Her voice was soft but clear. "To the stars, I speak," she said. "To those who listen and those who look away. Hear me. For too long, my people have been hunted, taken, drained. For too long, the forests have burned and the caves have gone silent." Daniel added his own words. "This is not just her story, it's the story of every innocent life caught in a cruel game. I am human, and I chose to help not for profit, not for power, but because it was right. I call on all who still care to rise, to speak, to act." The message continued, pulsing with emotion and truth as the words flowed into space. The cave grew brighter. The ancient systems inside the walls recognized the call, they amplified it. They sent the message not only to orbit, but beyond, across stars and systems. A warning and a promise. Daniel watched the sky from the cave's mouth. The drone flew upward, disappearing into the clouds. His message now traveled among satellites, bouncing off trade beacons, slipping through data lanes. Anyone with a receiver could hear it. Anyone with a heart could feel it, back inside. The mother lowered her hand and sat down beside her daughter. "I never thought I'd speak for our people again," she whispered. Daniel gave a small smile. Sometimes the truth only needs one voice to start a storm. Hours passed, and the forest began to recover. The cave hummed gently, as if pleased. Then Daniel's wrist crackled. It had been silent for days, jammed by the hunters. But now it came alive. "This is the rebel ship, Valora. We received your message," the voice said. "We are tracking your location. Hold position." Daniel's eyes widened. He stood up quickly, his heart beating faster. "Did you hear that?" he asked. The child's face lit up with hope. "Someone's coming." A few moments later, lights appeared in the sky. Not hunter ships, not dark and silent, but sleek and silver. Ships from different planets, marked with symbols of peace and resistance. They had come. The Valora landed first. A tall alien woman stepped out. Her armor was scratched but strong, her eyes filled with fire. "We've been fighting these hunters on other worlds," she said, "but this is the first time we've seen someone stop them without an army." Daniel shook her hand. "You don't need an army to do the right thing," he replied, "just a choice." The mother and child stepped out into the light. The rebels bowed their heads respectfully. One of them whispered, "She's a soul light bearer. She hasn't been seen in generations." Daniel stood between the two sides, human and alien, warrior and refugee. "This isn't just one rescue," he said. "This is the beginning of something new." The rebels began setting up defenses around the forest. Others treated the wounded and repaired the damage. Messages from other systems started pouring in, calls for help, offers of support, words of thanks. The galaxy had heard, and it was waking up. That night, under the stars, Daniel sat beside the fire, the child curled up next to him, resting peacefully. The mother stood near the edge of the trees, watching the forest breathe again. Daniel looked up at the stars and whispered, "One voice, one moment, one cry for helps. Sometimes that's all it takes." And across the stars, that message still echoed. Not from generals, not from kings, but from one human, one choice, and one promise to protect. The forest glowed under a sky full of stars. Fires had died down, and peace had returned for now. Daniel stood on a small hill above the cave, watching lights flicker across the treetops. Rebel ships floated silently in the sky, guarding the valley below. Alien volunteers worked beside humans, setting up shelters and rebuilding nature. What was once a hunting ground had become a place of protection. But Daniel knew it wasn't over. The hunters had fallen back, but they were still out there, somewhere beyond the stars. They were regrouping, angry, humiliated. They had lost their prize. Worst, they had lost their silence. Inside the cave, the ancient walls were brighter than ever. The symbols on the stone now glowed with a new symbol, a human hand beside the soul light mark. The mother walked beside Daniel, her steps stronger with each passing day. She looked at the new carvings and smiled gently. "The cave has accepted you," she said, "not just as a visitor, but as part of its story." Daniel looked at his hands. Still wearing the energy gloves? "I didn't come here to become anything," he said. "I just couldn't walk away, and that is why you became everything," she replied. The child ran up the hill toward them, her eyes sparkling. Look, they finished building the signal tower. She shouted. Now everyone can talk across systems. Daniel smiled, ruffling her hair. You've got a big voice for a small warrior. I learned from you, she giggled. Later that day, a council meeting was held under the trees. Rebel leaders, alien elders, and peacekeepers from distant moons sat together for the first time. They asked Daniel to speak. He stood in front of them. Nervous but calm. I'm not a leader, he began. I'm not a soldier or a hero. I'm just someone who listened when a child cried. But I've learned something important: evil wins when good people stay quiet. This forest, this family, they didn't need weapons. They needed someone to care. The crowd listened in silence. Some nodded, some wiped tears. He continued, if we stand together, human and alien, soldier and farmer, these hunters won't win. We'll build a network of safety, protect the ones they think are weak, and we'll show the galaxy that kindness is stronger than fear. When he finished, they stood and clapped it, just with hands, but with glowing lights, music, and colors. It was their way of honoring him. And in that moment, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He hadn't just survived. He had changed the course of many lives. As the days passed, the forest healed quickly. The mother began teaching others how to use the cave's energy. The child became a symbol of hope. Her story told in every camp, and Daniel became something new. A message came from Earth. His team had seen the transmission and tracked his signal. They offered to bring him home. But Daniel stared at the screen for a long time. Then, slowly, he shook his head. This is home now, he said softly. I still have work to do. He spent his days helping new refugees arrive safely. At night, he trained young defenders, showing them how to think, how to fight, how to protect. He didn't lead with fear, but with wisdom. And when others asked why he stayed, he only said one thing. I heard a child cry, and I answered. Soon, legends began to grow. Whispers spread across space of a human warrior who stood against poachers with no army, who carried an alien mother on his back through fire, who tamed the ancient cave and awakened its light. They called him the Flame Bearer, protector of the soul light, and simply the one who answered. Years later, a new monument stood in the forest, made of living crystal and vine. It showed Daniel, the mother, and the child standing together. The plaque read, "This place was once a trap. Now it is a promise because one human chose to stay." And even when Daniel's name faded with time, his story never did. Told in quiet songs, in glowing art, in the hearts of those who survived, because in a galaxy full of darkness, one spark of compassion lit the stars.